Hello. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're very excited to have you all. As we're just waiting for a couple people, maybe last minute attendance, I would love to know who speaks Arabic, who speaks English. So, Arabic speakers, can you put your hands up? Both. Okay. Okay, amazing. And all of you are parents? Anyone who's a non parent? Can I know why you're in this workshop? I'd love to hear what brought you to this workshop. That's amazing. What clinic do you work at and what's your name in case people want to? Wow. Okay. Amazing. I hope you get inspired and expand all across the world with this movement. And someone here also, not a parent? Yes. What brought you to this workshop? Wonderful. We call this preventative parenting. So welcome everyone. Today, both Sarah and I are going to be talking to you about parenting in the context of Arab culture. Now that is going to be much more clear as we go through this presentation and we go through this workshop together. Our aim today is to explore how Arab parents today manage and navigate the dual pressures of preserving our heritage and our culture with this new age of modern science and modern methods that feel very foreign to our parents and to our generation. So today, we aim to provide you with a nuanced understanding of those so that we understand how modern methodology, how modern psychology can be applied while still preserving our cultural values. And we're going to go into this a lot more. This is an interactive workshop. As you'll see, you've got papers. Don't worry, you don't need to reach out to them now. We're going to be interacting with you. We're going to be discussing with you. We really want to dive into understanding how our past and how we were parented, how it affects the present, and how we are choosing to parent the future generation of our Arab culture and the future generation of Arab children. Sarah. Oh, I forgot to introduce who we are. We forgot to introduce who we are. So I'm Karen and this is Sarah. Together we founded and birthed The Wise Parent. We are a parent education and coaching service. And together with our combined degrees in neuroscience and psychology and early childhood and family development, our aim is truly to provide the child with a nurturing environment where they can thrive. And that means educating and informing parents like yourselves. And we've done that through our one-to-one sessions, we do that through our workshops, and we do it through our signature program that we wrote and curated ourselves, which is a parenting curriculum that we are very proud of. And so without further ado, Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So to walk away with a bunch of very practical strategies on how to parent within the context of Arab culture. And we've been doing a lot of research over the summer on what does it mean? What does it mean to be Arab? What is Arab culture? What is Arab identity? What are our Arab values? And that's what we're really going to dig into today, is to kind of unpack all of that. What are these values that we hold so dear to us? And how do we pass these values on to our children in a way that is in true alignment with those values and still yet respects what we know today with all of this beautiful modern research that we have. So I wanted to start off today with this beautiful poem that actually I came across from one of my teachers. It's an Arabic poem. الأم مدرسة إذا أعتدتها وأعتدت شعبا طيبا العراق. And what that means, I mean, we have the translation here, but the mother is a school where if she is well prepared, then a nation is raised with virtues declared. I want to kind of open it up a little bit and hear your thoughts on how do you interpret this excerpt from this beautiful poem. what comes up for you? What kind of values come up for you from this poem? What lessons? What's the core message of what is being said here?
Maybe triggers me when it comes to this.
Yes.
It's actually from my mom, but it's in the community as a whole. It's the fact that they think that, like, I mean, like feminism and equality in women and things. So they pressure you, like, you need to work, you need to find a full-time job. I'm like, I have a full-time job. It's raising 2 kids to be really good people. So this is that. I mean, I live by this. But it's also like there's a lot of pressure even within our community that it's not enough and you need to do more. And honestly, you just like, I mean, all with like I really, really respect and appreciate, and I don't even know how they do it, working moms. I worked for a while and it was really hectic. I don't even remember anything about my daughter. My daughter is like that phase of her life. I really don't remember. It's just completely erased from my mind. So maybe I can't balance between life at home and work, but I just think this is beautiful. Please bring it back.
Thank you for sharing that. You're right. In our culture, and I think even globally, not necessarily just in the Middle East or Arab culture, that there is more pressure on the woman, on the mother, because we are now balancing and juggling, rather. Maybe we're trying to balance, but it's more like juggling a lot of a lot of pressures, a lot of responsibilities.
Sorry, could I answer to what she said?
Yeah, of course.
I give you the mic so that we can all hear. Oh, amazing. You beat me to it.
I just want to let you know there is no such thing as work-life balance. So whoever told you lied to you. So those of, I don't have kids, I work, but I have my friends who are moms and they are very high in their corporate world. And I can tell you it's not an easy job. So don't put the pressure on yourself that you're doing something wrong. Bravo. And that's how it should be. But there's no such thing as work-life balance.
Thank you for sharing that. And what else comes up? Here, we can move away maybe specifically of the term the mother and maybe kind of expand on that, the role of the parent in the household. What's going on here? When this poem is saying a parent is well prepared, then this parent is preparing their child, who is then a member of a community, and that community is a member of a nation full of virtues. Please.
Yeah, I wanted to say that what comes up is the first environment that the kid is raised in, which is the household, and being a school of life, like it is the first nurturing environment where if it's well prepared, if you give the parents the right tools, the right skills, and they well prepare those childs, they will become an active participant in the community. شعباً طيب الأعراق means it has virtue, it has values, and it thrives, basically.
Beautifully, thank you. Does anybody else want to share? Yeah.
It's like because the family is the smallest unit in a community. So if you're setting the right foundation, so then it's more likely that the entire structure will be strong and fixed and decent. But if these foundations are broken, then you can't really. I mean, you understand, like,
yes.
How can you expect a good community with values and virtues if the foundation is broken? So that's the...
Yes, beautiful. So if we're thinking about the role that the parent is playing in the household and the importance of that role in raising these children to become thriving members of their community, thriving members of their nation that hold these virtues and values, what are some of these values? What are some of these virtues and values that we're talking about that are the seeds of which are sowed from early age in the household?
Family first, I would say.
Family, yeah. Respect, big one. Hospitality.
Sense of belonging.
Generosity, a sense of belonging. عم بتلحقي؟
Respect. Honesty.
Responsibility in terms of not thinking about only personal interests, but rather like how this is going to affect the community as a whole.
Community.
Yeah.
Community.
But community with responsibility.
responsibility towards the community. Someone said generosity. Love, spirituality, agency. Are these values that resonate with you as Arabs? Yes, yes. So we're going to get into this throughout the workshop of these are all values that are super important. Are we mindful and conscious of how we are teaching these values? How are we teaching these values? How are we passing these on to our kids? How are we taught these values? Were we taught these values in a way that is true alignment with these values? Are we going to continue the methods in which those values were taught to us? Or are we going to preserve these values but update the methods a little bit? So, okay. Sorry, can you go to the next slide? Oh. Okay, there's a slide missing here, but that's okay. There was a slide of images. Okay, that's fine. So when we think about building a strong community, we often hear a lot of the feedback, sometimes mostly criticism, on modern parenting, whether it's from our elder family members or whether it's to each other, how we're seeing our children kind of behaving currently. A lot of the common criticism is that modern parenting is aka westernized, aka too individualistic. There's no more respect. There's no more, respect for authority. There's no more discipline, right? But what do we really mean when we say these things? What are we actually saying when we say to our children or to this way of parenting, it's too individualistic, it's too Western? What we want to emphasize today is that from that poem, from what you have all just been saying, is that when we think about community, these important values, the first ones, family, respect, sense of belonging, community, all of those are talking about a whole. And that whole is comprised of a lot of individual parts, individual people. So I want to just have us to really question. It's not about necessarily being too individualistic, but rather, what are we nurturing in the individual child? Are we forming that child from the inside out? It's not about individualistic as in selfish, but rather, are we really building up that inner child and making that child strong in their sense of belonging, in their confidence, and building those values that are intrinsic within them, so that as they grow and plug into this community, into this collective, that they are thriving and elevating that community together, yeah? So when we focus on the individual, we are contributing to the community. And how many of us, as we were growing up, or even perhaps we're still hearing today, things like عيب والسمعة وما بيصير شو رح يفكروا الناس, what are people going to think? This is an emphasis of the outside in, right? We want to work from the inside out. We want to build the sense of self in a child, and their character and their values are built inside them, and then have them plug into this community and contribute so that they are members that are respectful and kind and honest and truthful, that have a sense of responsibility. I don't know if you're familiar with the I don't know if it's a saying, that a chain is as strong as its weakest link. And our chain is our community. And us as Arabs in the region, that chain might be a little bit tired. It's a little bit weakening because of everything that's been going on. Even in the region, there's stability, alhamdulillah, there's stability, but there's a lot of change, right? There's a lot of development, there's a lot of movement, people coming in and out. In the rest of the region, there's a lot of war, there's a lot of conflict, there's a lot of migration, historically as well, from our ancestors and our parents. All of that change, it wears and tears that inner self. And so we want to pass down to our children and nurture that inner self so that we can strengthen that chain, strengthen that community. So on that note, I kind of want to open it back to you again and ask you, do you feel like you were parented? And I want you to just reflect a little bit. Do you feel like you were parented from the outside in or from the inside out? What was more common in your own childhood experiences?
What do you mean by outside? And like they were working it on us, or were they trying to bring like
So
our personality down?
we'll elaborate on it more. But what I mean by that is the focus was more on what will other people think.
Yes.
So your values are tied to what others think, what the community will think about your reputation, about the taboos, the aib, as opposed to the inside out, which is how are you feeling about this?
I don't think it existed. I mean, I'm not. I don't know.
She's beating us to the rest of the presentation. You should no, it's a good thing. You're thinking ahead. I just wanted to crack a joke with you.
Yeah, because I don't think I know someone.
Beautiful. That's amazing. Thank you for
I
sharing
think
that.
there were two parameters to when I was young. One was aib, and when you think of aib, that's the first model, which is the outside world being more important. And the other part that was also being instilled at the same time for other things was haram.
Mm-hmm.
And when they say haram, then they're trying to put it inside you, because then that's something that's internal. Then you're like, okay, so God's watching anyways. So it's not about the people watching, but it's more like it's more like you're internally watching. So I think growing up, I think these two were the what were being used. I mean, they meant well. You know, we love our parents, but that's what I mean by their approach to parents.
Thank you for sharing that. No, that's very true, and that is a big part of our culture. On that, you actually inspired me to think that another really important value, which is also emphasized in that initial poem, is that in our culture, teaching and education is very important. And we see the role of parents as the first teachers of our children. And even culturally speaking, whether you're Muslim or whether you're Christian, in our region, spiritual and religious teachings are embedded in our culture. We follow the teachings of our prophets, of our elders, their wisdom. And so this is also a very important value that also helps us grow from the inside out. Yeah, please.
So like my parents who had to flee their country and raising their kids in a culture that's foreign to them. It's so scary. And when I look back, I think I'm loud enough. And when I look back, I just think a lot of that kind of
You're actually raising a really good point. Yeah.
for us to actually go on.
Yeah, and perhaps even these parents or that generation, whether they immigrated for whatever reasons, they didn't have the time or the luxury that we have to actually sit and reflect. What are my values? What are the values that I want to pass on to my children? Am I parenting in alignment with those values? Maybe I want to change it up a little bit. This is a luxury that we have.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
Because in relation to what you were saying about religion, for example, our understanding of religion was wrong. Like what we took from our parents about religion and the aim and haram, specifically haram, is not really like if you want to follow the prophets correctly, it's not how they dealt with people around them. They dealt with kindness and forgiveness. They overlooked their mistakes. Like they weren't judgmental.
Yeah.
They played with the kids. They were, like
Yes.
showed a lot of kindness and sympathy.
Yes.
So I think we should go back to that because
Yes.
this is related to modern parenting, and it's exactly what we're saying about how they say that modern parenting is westernized. No, it goes back to it's embedded in
Our
religion.
core.
We need to go back to the source. and
Our
not what we
core,
learned from
yes.
our parents.
Yeah. Actually, the slide that was missing, I had images of a few images that I actually captured in the last few weeks. And it's images of in traffic, people cutting each other off, in the supermarket, shopping trolleys being left, on random locations, not in their designated space. And this was, the images were meant to kind of ignite a conversation around if we, have family and community at the top of our list, are we paying attention to the small acts in between? That's not to say that we're not a culture, that we're not a people that care about these things, but are we paying attention to the small things that we're doing, and how are we, presenting those values to our children? How are we embodying these values in front of our children?
Can I ask
Yeah,
one
sure.
more thing? When it comes to like the two parameters I was talking about, the diet part and the haram part, I think as we grow up, what
Yeah.
tends to happen, I think, is that they think that when you were taught as haram or halal, you think that it would kind of stay with you.
Mm-hmm.
But the diet part, as you grow up, you're like, well, that's not that diet. Like, I don't care what they think. Yeah, because so as long as it's not linked to like the religious part, you can, like, you feel like you can later on in life be like, yeah, I'm gonna drop that,
So what's interesting about this point on Aib is this is actually an outside-in type of example. Why? So in my past life, working in the development sector, I used to work a lot with refugees and people that were impacted by active conflict. And a lot of the Syrians that I was working with at the time, or Syrians that we were helping, were members of very conservative communities, religiously conservative, culturally conservative. And as soon as they left Syria, as soon as they left Iraq, as soon as they left their community of Aib, the Aib is what keeps them, kind of behaving a certain way. As soon as that community changed and there were no more eyes on them, their behavior changed. So, and this is the outside in. So when we come back to the child and we truly teach them these values and we embody them and we build them from the inside out, no matter where they go in life, no matter where they're living or what comes at them, that's already inside of them. Yeah, go ahead.
But I was also brought up on the Aib and the Haram. But when I first became a mom, I thought, okay, is this one? In the past, they did not have the knowledge, or they did not want to reflect on the way they used to bring us up, because again, their way was the same resemblance of the way they were brought up as well. But then now we have the luxury of the internet, or asking other professionals, like in the field of parenting, the reasons why, and like taking our kids, or why not to do a certain behavior, or why not to dress up in a certain way, or instead of right, we give the logical reason, the wisdom, the values, and the teachings.
I love that this conversation is happening, because you're going to leave this workshop with strategies to actually implement when you go home this evening. We're not just talking about values, we're talking about how we implement them and the way that we ingrain those values in our kids. What you just did right now is a reflection of your past to adjust your present. This doesn't mean that we lose what makes us Arab. This means that we adjust the way we Arabize our children. It is no longer taught using fear, using obedience, using aib. We want to adjust from the inside out. But how do we do this? That's what we're going to answer in this workshop. How do you actually do this? What does it look like in practical application with your children on a day-to-day level? So you guys beat us to it and you started reflecting on your past. So if you look on your tables, this is not a blame your parents activity. Please do not go calling your moms and dads and telling them that the wise parent told you to do this. What you'll see on your paper is the beginning of a reflection of a comparison. We want to compare how you were parented versus how you are currently or would like to bring up your children, or for the clinical psychologists and non-parents here, how you would like to treat and be around children. How would you like to influence them? So you'll notice we've left it a little bit vague. There's parenting style A and parenting style B. I'm going to go through a couple with you, and I would like you first to look at parenting style A. Mark an X for the way you were parented, or a check mark for how you would like to parent. So, parenting style A. For example, even if I didn't agree with them, my parents forced me to conform. Whenever my parents told me something or to do something, they expected me to do this immediately. I'm going to just do a couple with you and then we'll go at your own pace. My parents did not allow me to question any decision they made. They felt force needed to be used to have children behave. So you're in parenting style A on the left column. I'm going to give you about another minute to go through parenting style A. X is how you were parented as a child. The check mark, how you would like to or are currently parenting your own children. Do you want to put my laser on? Is it possible to make it less cold? My hands are freezing. I can't hold my paper. Were you punished if you didn't meet your parents' expectations? Did you have to conform out of respect for their authority? I'll give you a couple more seconds here, and this is something.
One of them.
Huh?
Be like both of them. 'Cause sometimes they were different, right, mom and dad?
Yes.
Like just if
That's a
one of
great idea, actually. If you want to do this for mom and dad,
Do it in mom and dad.
that's brilliant. There's extra paper if you guys want one.
Okay.
I know you're finishing off, but for those of you who can join me for parenting style B, let's do a couple together from the top down. So when you see the word policy, I know it sounds very clinical. It's a rule, it's a boundary, it's a rule, house rule. So once family rules were established, my parents discussed the reasoning. Who was talking about it was never discussed with us? Was it discussed?
Which one?
You were talking before about there were aib and there were things ingrained in you, but there was never an explanation.
Yeah, the explanation was you'll know when you grow up.
Yeah? Okay, so there was never a backstory. أنا قلت هيك، أنا حكيت هيك. اسمعي كلمتي.
نفذ ثم اعترض.
أو ما I got one ما بعرف احكي مع بيك. Baba, what's the answer? ما بعرف احكي مع أمك. I'm like, okay. Were you encouraged to have a verbal give and take? Did you have a voice and a say? Let's move down a little bit. Was there reasoning behind the discipline? Were you allowed to discuss? Did you have direction? My favorite one is the third one from the bottom, and I'll tell you why. My parents gave me direction for my behavior and activities and expected me to follow the direction, but they were always willing to listen to my concerns. Okay, if you guys want to continue this, I highly encourage it. What are we doing in this exercise? We're not blaming, right? Our parents parented us in the best way that they could with the circumstances in the environment that they had. Let alone, they did not have the knowledge and the information or the access that we have now. So this isn't a blame your parent, this is an observe your parent. What we want to do is understand the method that these values were taught to us. But still, what we're going to do in this workshop is take these values and adjust the method. We still want to be ingrained in our Arab culture and our Arab values. So how do we do that? Big reveal, there are big words for these types of parenting styles. Parenting style A is the authoritarian parent, how most of us regionally were parented, actually across the East. And parenting style B is authoritative. Authoritarian is my way or the highway. This is how it is, this is how you're gonna get it. I give you no explanation, I am the boss, you are the child. Authoritative, please correct me if we ever, we always confuse the words. Authoritative means I am the leader of this household. I make the decisions and I hear your concerns. At the end of the day, the authoritative parent is not permissive. It is not this taboo of new age, badly executed, gentle parenting. It is embodying your authority as a parent while still being aware that your children need a bit more information. They need the skills. They need to fill those gaps. And we're going to talk about that strategy coming up. So I'm going to ask you, Sarah, if I could trouble you to do authoritarian on the left side. It's okay. We can just do it here, I think. Okay. Authoritarian on the left side and authoritative on the right side. So my way or the highway versus I'm the leader and I still. So when I say these words, I'd like for you to tell me which word belongs where. When you think of the word conformity, authoritarian. When you think of the word obedience, authoritarian. When you think of the word fear, okay. How about inflexibility? Yeah. You can see I didn't shuffle them when I was making my notes. You can see how I think. How about the word individuality? Authoritative. Independence. Respect. Both.
I don't think.
There's no wrong answer. This is up for debate. Like, we can talk about this.
Respect of the child?
Respect as a value in general. So I love that you said respect of the child or respect to your elders. Interesting how respect was taught to us, right? How was it taught to us? How did we learn respect? How was it forced on us? How were we obliged? How were the stories and the inspirations taught to us to respect? Not always through fear. Sorry, you were saying?
Yeah, like through fear. So that's why I don't really think that it's out of respect. It's out of like I'm afraid that if I do this, I get punished, so I don't do it. But it's not out of respect for my parents. That of course I respect my parents. I love my parents. They did an amazing job and everything. But in terms of like the way,
Yeah.
So no, there was no room for negotiation. There was no room for things like that.
Yeah.
So in the end, I did it out of fear of
Okay.
you know, like the consequence,
Yes.
not out of okay, I respect my parents. I trust their judgment.
Yep. I like that you said that, and this is true in most situations. I was taught respect, personal story, off script. I was taught respect in both dynamics. I was taught respect through fear, and I was taught respect in admiration of my parents. So that method, in admiration of, maybe it still serves me. That's how I learned respect. That's why we're asking you to reflect. when you think of these values. Through fear, I'm ready to get rid of that. I don't want that. However, when it comes to observing my parents in their element, that was my moment of respect. That is the method I'm choosing to keep for this value. How about tolerance and patience? Authoritative. Tab, tell me this. Tab, my Lebanese came out. Which parenting style would breed a child who is confident in their decision making? In their decision making, right? How about which one breeds a child who is hesitant in their decision making? This is the inside that we were talking about. How are we ingraining these values so that our children are confident in whatever happens? This doesn't feel right for me right now. This is wrong. I don't choose to participate in this. That's inside. So how do we attune to that in our kids? So we're going to discuss a little bit of the science, okay? Just very light. We're not going to geek out with you today, although we love to, so please reach out to us if you do like that. In modern science and modern parenting today, in authoritative parenting, our goal is to really develop and nurture a strong sense of self that Sarah said that plugs into the community, right? It plugs into something larger. Our core values of family, community, and respect, that all comes from the way that we ingrain it. However, this means the way and the method we teach needs to focus on the value itself. We are very aware, we are informed, we're entering a new age. We need to pull away from something that the method no longer serves us, and we need to plug into figuring out the one that does. So, in modern psychology is rooted in positive psychology, which is all about building mental assets. Mental assets like emotion regulation, problem-solving skills, decision-making. That is what authoritative parenting is intended for. Those mental assets, as opposed to addressing weaknesses, shortcomings, problems, challenges. We elevate other aspects in modern parenting. So it's no longer just about behavioral management. It's beyond that. It's about recognizing that our children need to fill the gaps in their skill set. So, I lost myself in my notes. Okay, so this means when it comes to modern science, neuroscience, we are uncovering, not we, but we, the other scientists, are uncovering more and more about the brain. How many of you are familiar with Dr. Dan Siegel's hand model of the brain? You are. For those of you who aren't, I'll give a very quick overview and a demonstration.
What is it called, Dr. Dan?
Dr. Dan Siegel, he's written beautiful books called The Whole Brain Child.
Yeah.
Yeah? In The Whole Brain Child, he talks about the hand model of the brain. We'll quickly go over this. Put this down. So what we've learned with modern neuroscience is the brain develops from the bottom up. Okay? What does that mean? The bottom up. 1, 2, and 3. Here. The brainstem, which is in charge of fight, flight, freeze. This is the survival part of the brain. This is the first part of the brain that comes online. Newborns cry all the time. Survival, right? Eventually, the limbic system comes online. This is the emotional center of the brain. Most of our childhood is in these two systems. Emotion, fight, flight. Emotion, survival. When your child is melting down at the supermarket and rolling over and everybody is like, what is going on? They're in their brainstem at the bottom of their brain. When they're whining and crying, talking and whining and mama or playing baby, that is in the emotional part of the brain. At the age of 7, their problem solving and critical thinking comes online. This is a weak muscle. It's not lifting 100 kilos yet. And it doesn't fully develop until 25. And I can't think of one teenager who wasn't in the emotional center of their brain most of the time. For those of you who have teen kids. I remember from my teenage years as well. So what does this mean? This means that we are aware that the basic need of a child moves up in their ability to navigate challenges and emotions. In the East, we were parented top down. We were parented by very rational parents. And why is that? Because they grew up in wars, they were displaced, they had their traumas, they had their issues from their parents, and they didn't have the information. And what results from this? Our parents didn't have time to teach us to process our emotions, let alone their own emotions. And what happens when we suppress this emotion? We breed emotional difficulties like anxiety, depression, anxious thinking, all of the above. All of us are working on ourselves because we have this awareness, because we're trying to bring alive the emotion that was suppressed. So, what do we see around us? Us as the effect of suppressing those emotions. We see adults with these issues, anxiety, anxious thinking, depression. We see adults that are easily triggered and overwhelmed by an emotion. When our child does something, our nervous system, our brainstem has been trained to react immediately because we never were taught to process these experiences and these emotions. This is what modern science is telling us today. Bottom up is the way to go, which actually completely makes sense if you look at the behavior of your 4-year-old, 5-year-old, even 12, 13-year-olds. So what we'd like to go into now is the strategies that you're going to implement at home. We have our values. We know them. We've reflected on what parts of our families, let me rephrase, we've reflected on the methods that no longer serve or are conducive to enhancing our Arab values. All we have to do is adjust our method to enhance these so that they are inside and they ooze out of our children, so that we elevate our community, we elevate our society, we elevate what makes us proudly Arab. So Sarah is going to kick us off. I'm going to hand over the mic. Oh, you have? Okay. You have to slide it up. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Karen. So let's get into a little bit of the practice. Let's contextualize all this and actually make it something that you guys can go home and actually start using with your kids or for yourselves. So the first one, we called it modeling pro-social behavior. You'll see a worksheet on your tables that have that checklist. It's a really quick one. I think it's a really insightful one because, again, if I come back to this original list of values that you guys all listed out and shared, community, family, respect, kindness, generosity. This checklist, if you guys can just go through and actually rate. Oh no, it's slightly, sorry. This is an old version and we couldn't update it. So yeah, follow the worksheet. So how often are you demonstrating and modeling these values, these behaviors in front of your kids? Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you guys to share. If it's like never, it's okay. These values, we're calling them pro-social behavior because they are pro-social. Pro-social means that it's contributing positively to our society, to our communities, to our families. And it's also to bring awareness about all the little things that we're not really paying attention to. We often are very active. We as Arabs, we are activists. We are active in our volunteering, in our donations, in helping. But it's also the small little things that we do in between, the way we communicate to each other, the way we communicate to our families, to those that help us. We talk about modeling pro-social behavior. Modeling is a really important parenting strategy. It is one of the most important ones because children are much better at mimicking your behavior than listening to your words. Yeah? If you think about it yourselves, imagine yourselves as kids or even as teenager, you're much more likely to pick up the behaviors that your parents exhibited than to do the things that your parents told you not to do or to do. And if we think about the word modeling, in English, to model means to, well, it means to be an example of something or to illustrate something. But in Arabic, also, I actually looked it up, the original root word of yumathil or tamthil is actually to be a part of something big, to be a part of the thing that you are embodying. And so to model, it's not just to act a certain way, but it is to embody that very thing that you are trying to teach your kids. When we say respect, how are you embodying respect? How are you showing them and being respect? When we think about respect and how it was taught to us, what Karen was describing, respect in an authoritarian, where it was, you have to respect me, you have to respect my role as a parent, as opposed to authoritative, where respect is still at the heart of it. Respect is still something that's really important. But I'm going to teach you respect by respecting you, by being respectful to those around me, by being respectful towards myself. That is the best way that our children can learn these values. Being respectful in the way that we communicate to each other. Just a little bit also, in Islamic tradition, in the hadith, there is a hadith that talks about how going to heaven, the access to Jannah is through our mothers, it's through parents. And how that's been translated culturally over generations is you must respect your elders. Right? But what's interesting, and I actually reflected on this, is if we as parents care about our children's success, whatever success you want to define it as, whether it's success going in the afterlife, whether it's success in this life, we care about the well-being of our children, and so therefore we want to make it easy for them to succeed. And if respecting us is their path towards success, then let's make it easier for them to respect us by being kind and respectful to them. Thank you. Do you want to next strategy? Here. Does anybody have any questions on this bit before we move on to the next strategy? Yeah.
I was going to ask this question at the end, but I thought I might as well in case it's useful for anyone else. So this is like such a big wake-up call, I think, especially for somebody who's working, who's never really around. And I just wanted to kind of like understand what your thoughts are on when it comes to how can we actually make this effective in a home where the parents are always absent, like two working parents or someone who's always traveling, and there's a lot of like dependency on the help. So what does that look like in that kind of like situation?
How has it been for you so far? What have you been doing right now? Because this is actually a very common situation here. So because you're a working parent and because you don't have that time that you think or that you want to have, how have you been navigating it? No, not about well or not well, but how has it been?
You know, like you do what you can with the time that you have, but I'm just worried that it's not enough. Like the time that you have with your kids is not enough to be able to raise them in this way. You know what I mean? Because it's all about like modeling and showing them real life kind of scenarios.
I think the purpose of this is not to make you feel guilty or to add more pressure to it. I think we think that parenting is all the big moments. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to, we're going to talk about that tantrum that you had. We're going to talk about how you hit your sibling, or we're going to talk, but it's actually all the little moments. And they're seconds, they're fleeting minutes. They're the mornings together. I know that for working moms especially, it's very difficult, and you feel like you're constantly trying to catch up and cram everything in that 1 hour before bedtime, and weekends are chaos, and we get it. But folk remember that they are watching us. So even when we're not actively parenting, they are observing. You can talk, if you're not around, having conversations with your nannies are really important. because they are primary caregivers. They are there with our children. You know, to answer your question on the nannies is, yeah.
Like when we parent, it's like we're following guidelines, but they don't always apply to what our child needs now, because it depends on their age, their atmosphere, what they're going through. So sometimes, like, I mean, you don't have to focus on everything at once, but just like sit with your child, see what they need now, and then just make it about that. Like focus on that. So if it's respect, or if it's bullying, or I mean, like whatever it is, you can just like focus on that, and with the little time that you have, and then eventually when they move to a different phase, then you can focus on something else maybe, and in between you can slip in those little moments of like, you know, they can do really simple things like hear how they're mentioning like returning the shopping cart, praising the nanny, and also like publicly like thanking her for what she does, praising your husband and also thanking her. So it's just like common decency in the house and how you behave.
It's about, you said our time is limited. It's the limited time. Making that time effective. And this is one of the ways that you can do that. Let's go through what this is. Telling stories. How many of you have incredible stories about your history and your family? How many of you actually share those stories? Do you share them? Stories are a very powerful way to instill values in our kids. It's actually a very underestimated parenting strategy, and it's equally powerful. And why is it? Because when we tell stories, we pass on these values, the history, our lives, our culture, to keep these values alive in the next generation. We are raising, most of us, third culture kids. They are far from their motherland. So stories is a way to ingrain that and to keep us close. Another thing is, it connects with a child on an emotional level. Stories help children feel seen and connected on a whole other level. When you start telling your children stories, please do not be surprised when they ask you for more and more and more. Also, they're a great way to teach life lessons without the lecture. Without the sit down and the 15 minutes, nice, passive, short, and effective. Let's give you some examples. How are we going to teach the value of community, generosity, the importance of helping others? Let's give you a story. I'm going to pretend that you guys are my children. Let me tell you about a time where your great-great-grandfather saw his neighbor struggling to bring in his harvest. He struggled and he couldn't on his own, and your grandfather saw this, and you know what he did? Your grandfather gathered all the neighbors and everyone in the community to help this man bring in his harvest. Imagine how he felt. Engage with your child. What did he feel? What did that person feel? Okay, you've talked about this story. So the man came back to say thank you to your grandfather. He knocked on the door, and obviously you're going to make it much more animated. We are running short on time. You're going to make it animated and more detailed. And your grandfather, when the man came to say thank you, you know what he said? Take a guess. Your kid engages. Oh, that's interesting. That's great. You know what your great-grandfather said? He said, in our community, we don't wait for people to ask for help. When we see people struggling, we help because we want to. How powerful is that mini anecdote? Sometimes I make up stories to my child. It's okay. You're not lying, but you add a little bit to give them more. I know that we're short on time, so instead of giving you another example, I'll be happy if you guys want more examples. I have a list of them, so please reach out to us after this and we can inspire you. The next strategy is about boundaries and with compassion, which the Arabic word al-wajib, the obligation. And we're going to tell you a little bit about that. It sounds heavy, right? Let's change your perspective.
So boundaries is a really important thing that parents need to do really well today. Boundaries is actually what bridges past ways of parenting with today's way of parenting. What do I mean by that? Our parents' generation, generally speaking, it was very much, you knew when your parents said, this is not allowed, or you need to stop doing this, or it's time to go, you knew that you need to follow those orders, right? There was no two ways about it.
today, there seems to be a lot more fluidity and confusion, and kids don't necessarily respect or adhere to what their parents are saying in the same way that our generation did when we were kids. Boundaries are the thing that needs to be implemented in a consistent and loving way to our children to teach them these important values. And I'm going to contextualize it in just a second. So the purpose of boundaries is to really establish your role as a parent, as an authority. The difference with the previous way of parenting, it's not because I said so. When we say, okay, it's time to go visit our family members, it's time to go visit your grandmother, it's time to go, you know, do whatever it is that you want to do, the wajbat, okay? We don't want to give a blanket statement just because, right? We want to respect the fact that we want to nurture and teach these children the importance of doing these things, the values that we hold and why they are important. So one, we are preserving our role as a parent, as an authority figure. So the parent gets to choose the boundary, but we are still doing it in a respectful and loving way. So I can't write on it, but there's a script, okay? And we're gonna practice a couple of them together, because being able to set a boundary with your kids in a respectful, loving way, but with the authority and firmness that you should have as parents is really important. So the method or the formula is, whenever you want to ask your kid or tell your kid, we're gonna go visit Teta today, and the kid says, no, I don't want to go, nah, nah. There's 4 elements to a boundary. Number 1 is to validate. So we want to validate the way they feel, right? Coming back to this idea, feelings exist, whether we like it or not, yeah? And even the nasty feelings. So we can either choose to ignore it and suppress it, or we can acknowledge them. We're acknowledging the feelings, not the behavior, yeah? I just want to clarify that. So number 1 is we validate the feeling. Number 2 is we still set the boundary. We're still going to go. You're feeling upset, but we're still going to go. That's the boundary. Number 3, we explain the value. Why are we still going to go? We're still going to go because family matters, because our grandparents are important to us, because family ties are important. And this is how we show that we love and care for each other. And number 4, and this is how we do boundaries with compassion. The 4th one is compassionate support. So we want to be supportive. We want to be the safe figure for our children. So that could sound like, we're still going to go because XYZ, it's important for our family. I just want you to know that while we're there, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling upset, you can come to me and we can take a step out together. Or if you're feeling like it's too much, then you can give me a signal and we can leave or we can find. This compassionate support is actually teaching your children that there is flexibility, that we're not rigid. We see you. You are seen. You are understood. These values are still important and we're going to hold to them, but it doesn't ignore your experience. Okay? Absolutely. That's compassionate. That compassionate support it's giving that flexibility, that acknowledgement that, yes, you're not going to like it. It actually builds the resilience. You want to follow through because it teaches them resilience. It teaches them that sometimes you're going to do things you're not going to like. Yeah, a lot of the criticism from our parents and the older generation is, "Shwahad, yani, your kids, like they get to do whatever they want, everything goes their way." No. Children also need to learn that not everything is going to be exactly the way you want it to be. And that's okay. And we're still going to respect that. Yeah, you're not going to like it. I get it. It's not fun. But we're still going to do it. And I'm right here with you. What do you need? What can I do to help you? make this easier. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So let's practice together. Okay? So let's say before the phone call happens, you're going to have a conversation with your kid. Okay, so number one is you want to validate. Go ahead. Validate. No, I don't want to go. I don't want to talk to mommy and dad. Or just don't do. I get it. It's not fun to talk on the phone with Teta and Jitto sometimes. Yeah. Okay. Number two, boundary. Okay, so that's also the value. So the boundaries, we're still going to have that call. And why? The value, number three, because it's family and family is important. The last one is the compassionate support. So this is where your unique, like parenting approach comes in here. This is your parenting. You know your child best. Compassionate support, it is flexible, it is varied, it's not one size fits all. So what would be a way, kind of like a crutch? It could be a negotiation, it could be a compromise. It's okay. It doesn't mean that you're weak as a parent. It means that you are acknowledging your child and you are working together with your kid. So what's something that you can suggest to your kid or explore together that could, be a compromise? We're still going to have this call. I would really like for you to be a part of it. What's something that would help? Mm-hmm. Amazing. Well, I'm glad that because this is a part of today's parenting. It's really seeing our kids and understanding their struggles. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't know what to say or what to do. So then I would tell them tell them about that thing that happened in school. Yeah. Okay, you can just talk to them for a minute or whatever, 30 seconds. and just tell them about this one friend who came over and what you did together. And then she would get excited, Because you start and end. Yeah, exactly. Just say that story and then say bye. I hope you're doing well, and that's it,
We're conscious of time. Sorry. We've gone over time. We did have 2 more strategies for you. One was about teaching the skills, and the other was setting boundaries with other family members when it comes to the way you're parented. If those are things that you'd like to learn more about, we're here. We can answer your questions. If you scan these QR codes, those are different ways to work with us. Save the links on your phone, and please, this is the survey that's been coming up after each workshop. We'd really appreciate if you guys take the time to fill that out. So I'm going to leave that up for all the phones up here. And then I'll move it back to the other. If you guys want to reach out to us, we'd love to work together. Thank you so much for your time. Sorry we couldn't cover everything, but we are so happy that this was such an engaging workshop. Have a lovely rest of the day.